Hey, what is up guys, welcome back to this game's tutorial. So in this one, we don't actually change anything in terms of the visual, in terms of the gameplay right now. Actually, we do change the gameplay a little bit, but it's really hard to see. We actually set values to our levels. So let me explain really quickly. Say you have a hit point of level 10, then we actually give a value to that level 10. What we used to do before that is actually take your current hit point and then do plus level. Which, say, if you're level 10 in hit point, then you would be at 11 in hit point. And that just didn't really work out for the kind of game we're trying to achieve. We want to have something that scales up exponentially, so we end up with really big numbers. Now, if you take a look at the console down here, we actually created a table that would say, okay, so at level 4, you actually get plus 3 on your stats, which is not a lot, but if we just move up a little bit, as you can tell at level 10, you get plus 16. And it goes on for a while. See, at level 50 you actually get plus 347 on your stats, and it just goes on like this until we reach some really big number, and that is what we create in this episode, guys. So without further ado, let's get started. Alright, so we basically got our game with here. We have this nice menu. Now we'd like to actually fill some data, some actual data, because right now, as you can see, hit point, level 0, and multiple times. No, that just doesn't work. But before we do any of this, we actually need to set an actual value on our hit point. Now I know we've got an array of ints that is supposed to represent the stats, but that's actually just the stats level. So say the hit point is going to be level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But the amount of hit point is not going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It actually differs a little bit because there's the level of the stat and there's also the value behind it that we use to actually code the game. Now, this is exactly what we're going to be starting to do this episode. We are going to create a new script. So a new C# script that I'll call stats helper. And this one is going to allow us to actually fetch the values of our stats, and we're going to have like some custom formula in there. Now, the first thing I'd like to do with this actual stats helper is go inside of the tower, take my public enum right here, and actually move it over there. So I'm going to hit Ctrl X to cut, and whoops, and Ctrl V to paste in here. So now my enum is actually inside of the stats helper. In terms of the code, this actually did not change anything. We're just changing place, that's all, and it's just for clarity purpose. Alright, so we have our public class stats helper, and this one is going to have a region up here and a end region. This region is going to be all about stats const. There is a lot of copy paste to do in this episode, get ready for that, and you will see why in a little moment. But below this, we'll declare a public static instance of type stats helper, like so. Make it a set get, and now we can actually access this from anywhere as long as we have an instance, which we will get in a private void start. Now we do instance is equal to this. Alright, so there's a lot of things to cover in this episode. I'm just going to go ahead and start with the const, and we'll do a comment for every single one of those. So the first stat is damage, second one is range. I'm basing myself on the enum up here. The order does not really matter, but it's better to keep it in order. So the third one, speed, then hit point, then regen, crit chance, crit damage, and lock. Now obviously whenever we have a new stats, we are going to be making a section for that very stats in here. Now here's exactly what we're going to be putting in those little section that we've made. We are going to be putting some constant. Let's start with the first one, private const float, and we're going to say base damage is equal to say 1f. Now every single one of those stats is going to have a base value, and I'm just going to copy paste this in every single little section, and all we're gonna do is actually change the name. So over here, the second string for the name of the stats. So base range, base speed, base hit point, base regen, base crit chance, all in one word, crit damage, and finally base luck. Now, in terms of the actual values, we are going to be, it really depends on what you'd like to have. So say for the damage, I'd like to start with 1 damage. So 1 projectile does 1 damage, that's fine. Then as for the range, let's go ahead and just say base range is equal to 7.5, something of the sort. So that's 7.5 in radius, so 15 in diameter. And what else? The speed, we could go for something like 1.5 and actually use this as 1.5 attack per seconds. This is 1 damage on every projectile. 7.5 meter in radius. Now this is the base hit point, so it's actually the max hit point. And max hit point, we could be putting that on 10, so we're going to start with 10 HP. Something like that. Now, as far as the regen goes, I'm going to be using this every single 5 seconds. So maybe a regen 1 HP, so regen 1 hit point every 5 seconds. Like so. As far as the crit gen goes, we could be putting, let's go with 0.01. So we got a % crit chance, so 1 chance out of 100 to crit at level 1, of course, or I mean at level 0. And then as for the crit damage, let's do say 50. So this is going to be plus 50% of base of the actual damage. So say you're actually landing a critical strike at level 0, then you would be doing 150% of the damage. Okay, then as far as luck goes, we can be putting, say, I've got 10% chance to have a drop. And that seems to work, theoretically, of course. Now we need to actually implement that. So we've got a base everything right now, and we can actually go ahead and just start coding a public float get stat value, which is going to take in a stat in parameter, like so. Stat being our enum up here. Alright, so before we even get started doing the stats, there is something we need to understand. So we're gonna be having some stats that scale exponentially, and some that don't. So if we're thinking like about the range stat, then you can be increasing, every level you can be increasing by say 1 meter in radius every time. And every single level you're gonna be gaining 1 meter, and that's fine. But there's also stats like HP. Say you're winning 1 HP every level, at one point you're going to be at level like 50 and you're still going to be winning 1 HP, which is not going to be enough at that point because the stats of the enemy damage and all of that is going to be scaling exponentially, so we have some big numbers. So we got to find a way to actually create some kind of list saying, okay, so at level 50 you're going to be gaining X amount of your value, basically. So before we even get started writing this get stat value, I am going to create a function in between these two called generate level values array. And I'll be putting it in the start, so we only call it once at the very beginning. And inside of that, we are going to be setting a, well, we're going to be creating a int array basically. So we're going to be declaring it up here, private int array, level array, or level value array if you prefer. New int, and it's going to be int of say 200, which we should actually store in a constant. So that's the max amount of level that we can get in terms of skill. So I'm just going to be putting it, say, right here. private const int max scale level is equal to 200. And if we decide to change that, of course, we can always just change the value up here. Okay. Okay, so basically what's happening here is, say we're asking for the value at the index 0, then I'd like to get the additional value we should add up to our base value when you're at level 0. So what we need right here is an array that starts from 0 that goes up to 199 and it grows exponentially. Now there is a formula that I pulled out of the web that I like quite a lot, and I'm going to share it with you guys. We are going to start by declaring a float, and then we'll do a for int I is equal to 0 as long as I is smaller than the max scale level, so 200 I++, and every single time we will do points plus equal matf.floor I plus I times actually matf.power of 2 I divided by a certain scale that we could be putting on, say, 15, and that's an arbitrary value, so you can bump it down and it's going to grow not as fast. So we can actually put that inside of a float. We might actually do that right here. Private const float level values scale. So let's do 15 like we said, and we're just going to replace that hard-coded number, and after that we're going to do level values array at the index I is equal to int matf.floor points divided by 4. And that looks really messy right here, and we don't really have to understand what this does, but it basically creates us an array. And to show you what it does, we're actually going to debug.log the array. So debug.log level values at the index I, like so. And since I'll be calling this from the start, we should actually get some values in there as soon as possible. So before we fix this error, actually we need to fix this error first. So where is it at? It says that stats has been declared more than once. Oh, never mind, it's another error now, so let's just do return 0. Alright, now I'm going to be putting this stats helper on my tower. Press play so we can have a look at our new array. So here it is. And in order to read this properly, we are going to go back in the stats helper and actually put something more in our debug.log. So I'll say level plus I dot toString plus space, and after that that's going to be the amount of the value. So let's have a quick look. At level 1 you gain 0, which is fine. Level 2 you also gain 0, which is something we'll need to fix. Level 3 you gain 1 point, so say it's HP. Basically at level 3 you start gaining 1 HP, then at level 4 you gain 2, so you're now at, since the base is 10, over here you're at 11, then you're at 13, and then plus 4, plus 5, plus 8, and it goes on exponentially, and then we start getting some bigger number, and we end up at, when we're finally at the max level, we end up at almost a million, which is something really cool. Is it a million or is it 10 million? Doesn't really matter at this point. Now if we find this value to be a little bit too much, we can always reduce the scaling over here, so say 7.5 instead, and we should be cut in almost half. If we go press and play now, oh, the actual maximum value goes in the other direction. Okay, so never mind, so you gotta be increasing that value to say maybe like 20, and then the final result should actually be a little bit less, actually a lot less. Yeah, I think I'm gonna be leaving it on that actually. And if we go back at the very beginning, then I think we need to fix, we don't need to fix level 1. Level 1 0 is fine, but level 2 0 is a problem, so we should be incrementing this, and we can do +1 on here. So we have something at the very base. So as you can tell, now we start from 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, and it just goes on like this, and it starts incrementing really slowly, and at one point it just goes crazy, which is exactly what we'd like, because at say level 100, then you'd like to have some bigger number to actually play with. So every time you buy a new level, you have 1.5 thousand HP. Alright. Good, so let's keep going, let's keep writing our stuff. When we do a get stat value, we now covered the part where we get some scaling levels, such as hit point, but we never actually covered the part where it's not going to be something that scales this much. So say you're at a level 100 luck, you don't want to be gaining 1500% more luck. That just doesn't work, that doesn't work out well. So instead, once we arrive at those type of numbers, we need to actually set a set amount of gain. So every level you're going to be gaining, say, 0.25 in range. Let's actually do it right here. We go under range. All we're going to say is private const float, and then we're going to start with the word gain, and then the stats. So gain range, say we're going to be gaining 0.25 in radius. And after that, we could be doing speed. So private const float gain speed. This one is going to be equal to 0.025. Oh, like this. And hit point is a scaling value, so we just leave it there. As far as the region goes, it's also going to be scaling, because it's, you know, if the HPE is scaling, then we'd also like the region to be scaling as well. Now the crit chance is a percentage, so we don't really want to scale this up. Let's do private const float gain crit chance, and we're going to be gaining a % crit every time, so 0.01f. Now as far as the crit damage goes, this is also some kind of percentage, so say private const float gain crit damage, and every time you get a new level in crit damage, let's actually gain 5% more damage. That is going to be fairly cool. So a good skill to invest in. And as far as luck goes, we can say private const float gain luck, and you're going to be gaining 0.15. Now of course all those values are pretty much just my super fast balancing of the game. They're going to be needing a lot of tweaking, that is for sure, to make the game fun. But hey, we've got a good base over here, and I think that's going to be pretty much it for the current stats we have right now. Now, if we go back inside the get stat value, we are going to do a big, really big switch case. So let's start with a return -1f. So in case nothing works, we're going to be returning -1f. Now let's do a switch on the stat, and we're going to be saying, so in case it is stat.damage, do this. So return something. In case it is stat.hitpoint, do that. In case it is stats.region, and you get the idea. So we're going to be doing this for pretty much every single stat. And actually, you know what? Instead of doing them all one by one like this, I'll actually go ahead and just do the whole formula. So as far as the damage goes, it is a scaling stats. So we'd like to say, start by returning me the base damage plus level values array at the index, and now we need the level. And the way we're going to get it, now I'm thinking about it, is actually fetching it from the tower itself. So let's do int level is equal to the tower instance stats, and we're going to get the stats at int stat, like so. So now we're getting the level of that very stats, and we can just put it in here. So say the tower is level 10, the damage is level 10, then we get the base damage, which is 1, and then we do a plus 16 So we're at 17 damage at level 10. Alright, let's go back. Let's do the same exact thing for hit points. So base underscore hit point plus level values array at the index level. Now as far as the region goes, it is the same exact thing. So return base region plus level values, level values array at level again. And then after that, let's do the base crit damage. So case state crit damage, and this is going to be base crit damage. Whoops, I keep missing the good one. So we return base crit damage, and this is where it actually gets a little bit more complicated, because it's not a scaling stat. It doesn't actually goes up exponentially. It's actually going up by the amount of what we set as gain. So instead of doing what we used to do, we're gonna say plus level times gain crit damage. So depending on this value, if we're level 10, then this is going to give 10 times 5, so 50. 50 plus, oh, is it 50? Yeah, okay, 50 plus 50, so we get a 100% crit chance at level 10. Nice, let's keep going. So stat crit chance. Oh, actually, this was a crit damage, not the crit chance, sorry. So crit chance, base crit chance plus level times gain crit chance, and we just keep on going like this until we have all the stats. So stats dot luck is return base luck plus level times gain luck, and then case speed, so stat dot speed, return base speed plus level times gain in speed, and finally case range, so stat dot range, return base range plus level times gain range. Alright, this was a lot of, not copy paste, but a lot of typing, and there's probably a way to do it shorter, but I like this way better because I have all the values I can control in a single region over here. And I think that is going to be pretty much it for all the stats value. Now, of course, once we implement a new stats, then it needs first a new field here in the enum. Then it needs a new region with a base of that skill, and then it needs a new get stat value. Else we're gonna get -1, which we can use to debug. So if you're getting -1, that means there's an issue. And we can also do a little debug.log. So debug.log stat has no return value. Code it in the get stat value function, something like that. And we're never actually going to see this debug.log because it does the return here first, right? This is also why we don't need to do a case break. So usually in the switch case you do a case and then you finally break your case, but we don't have to do this here because we do a return statement. Okay, so this looks actually quite good. Let's go inside of the tower and actually change what we used to call beforehand. So let's start with a really simple one. In the start function, we are going to create, because I realized something a little bit earlier while doing this video. In the take damage over here, we actually take the level of the hit point and we reduce that, so that did not make any sense. So this whole function over here is pretty much just wrong. So in order to fix that, I will start by doing something really simple. Public float hit point, like so, and this is going to be a set and get value because it pretty much is public now. And I'm also going to be putting it up here, right? So we didn't have a hit point beforehand, and that is totally my bad. I totally forgot about it. So here it is, hit point. Alright, so if we take this hit point now and we just scroll down through our script and actually fix with the places where we were using the level instead of using the values. So we're gonna start from here. We don't need anything in here. we need to actually set the hit point. So hit point is now equal to, and the call we have to do now is stats helper dot instance dot get stat value stat dot hit point, like so. Alright, now if we just keep going down a little bit, we are going to pretty much just copy this, keep these in the clipboard so we can paste it easily. So create tower mesh. Create tower mesh does not take in any stats. Rescale tower. It might look like it's actually taking stats, but it is really not right now. It is not taking stats, it's simply taking the level, and it's using the level to actually do the width and range height gain. So this one is also fine. Now in the update, we do if time.time minus last attack is bigger than the level of the speed stats. So the way we have it set up right now, every time we'd get a new speed level, this would actually be slower. So we'd get a slower attack rate. Now what we're gonna do is, instead of putting that here, we're gonna say stats helper.instance.get stat value stat.speed. And this is going to return us a value. If we go back in the stat helper, this is going to return us base speed plus level times gain speed, and this is also a mistake. We actually need to put a minus in front of that, and that's only for the speed. So be really careful about this. I forgot about it a little bit earlier on. So this value is actually going to go down as the level goes up, and that's what we want. So we want this to be reduced as it goes up so we can attack faster. Alright, so next one is over here, the range. We do overlap sphere, we use the level of the range plus 5, so all of this is going to go away now since we also have our base range. We're going to say stats helper.instance.get stat value at stat range. Alright, the rest is fine. Let's go back a little bit. There doesn't seem to be anything else in here. Shoot enemy, nope. Nope. Oh, over here, when we launch a projectile, we also send the damage. Now the damage is stats helper.instance.get stat value at damage. And there's also a little bit more to create here for the crit chance, so let's actually create a section for later on. We're going to be calling it calculate crit damage. And this is not done, so I'll just be putting some question mark next to it. Now as far as the take damage goes, this is no longer the level of the hit point, this is actually hit point. So now it is hit point minus equal to the amount in int, and let's actually not put it in int, let's leave it as a float. If tower stats at hit point is smaller than 0, let's remove that for hit point. So if hit point is smaller than 0, let's actually say hit point is equal to stats helper dot instance dot get stat value at stat dot hit point. And I think that's going to work. And if we go here, these are the levels. We're not touching the level are working just fine. We're actually just saving the level, we're not saving the values behind it. And that's also fine, save local works. Great, so everything seems to be working just fine. Let's actually go do some tests and have a look at what this gives us in the game. So our range should be a little bit smaller. So right now we're not attacking from the get-go, and that's exactly what we'd like to have. So that's very good. And we should actually have more hit points so we don't die in one hit now. Let me just create a bunch more, and it should die an actual moment before it kills us. So 10 attack. And there we go. Now there was many of those, that's why it was that fast. But if we just try again with a little bit less enemies, the tower should die, but a little bit slower. And yeah, alright. So guys, we've done a lot. It doesn't seem like it because there's no real change to the game, but we've done a lot to the actual backend. And as you can tell here, we have a nice value table that comes out of the level, and this is going to be fairly useful to us in terms of the scaling of the game. Alright guys, so I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave me a like. Really appreciate that as always. If you have any question or comment, you can also leave them in the comment section below, and I'll make sure to answer them as soon as possible. Other than that, please subscribe for more tutorials like these, and I'll be seeing you guys in the next episode.